Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere comes from listeners like you who support us through Patreon and Substack. Bonus material, thank you gifts, and more await at patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock and at ihearofsherlock.substack.com. And now you can enjoy some iHoes swag, mugs, notepads, and oval stickers, available in our store. Find it at ihearofsherlock.com/merchandise.
I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became astronomer.
In a world where it's always 1895, it's I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, a podcast for devotees of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first consulting detective.
I've heard of you before. You're Holmes the meddler, Holmes the busybody, Holmes the Scotland Yard Jack in office.
The game's afoot as we interview authors, editors, creators, and other prominent Sherlockians on various aspects of the great detective in popular culture.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
So join your hosts, Scott Monty and Burt Wolder, as they talk about what's new in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
You couldn't have come at a better time!
Welcome to I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast for Sherlock Holmes devotees where it's always 1895. This is a special, well, I hesitate to call it special, more of an emergency episode. We have breaking news regarding the death of actor David Burke, the first actor to play Dr. Watson in the Granada television series. I've invited Gus and Luke Holwerda from the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes podcast to join me. Burt is off for this occasion, but we have a touching and delightful conversation about Burke's impact to the Sherlockian screen world, as well as just what he brought to the character of Dr. Watson, including clips from the show. So, stay tuned.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
Well, unfortunately, folks, we have some developments here that we thought we would share with you as we were getting ready to put the final touches on the editing of our interview with Gus and Luke from the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes podcast. We discovered via their Facebook page that the beloved David Burke, who was Jeremy Brett's first Watson in the Granada series, has passed away at the age of 91. Here to talk with us about David, his untimely, well, I don't know if it's untimely, but his passing, and the impact he had on the world of Sherlock Holmes viewers are Gus and Luke Holwerda. Guys, welcome.
Well, it's nice to talk with you again, even under these circumstances.
I know. Yeah. But I figured if there was any person or people I wanted to talk to about this, it's the two of you, because not only have you spent the last number of years minutely analyzing the Granada series, you were huge fans of David Burke and even had an opportunity to sit down with him in recent years and have a chat with him.
Yeah.
First, let me ask you, how are you guys doing?
Well, I was a little bit afraid I might get choked up, but if I do, it's okay.
Yeah, it's been a rough day. We've had a pretty big outpouring, though, of love from people on different social media platforms. So that's been nice, because we know that Tom is seeing it. Tom Burke is seeing a lot of it. So I think that's going a long way for the family. So that's been a nice help for everybody.
That's good. And, I've looked online. I've looked at the usual sites. I haven't seen any official news of David's passing yet, but can you share with our listeners how you found out about it and verified it?
Well, I mean, the short version is that, as you know, we're traveling to England in just a week or so, and so we've been in contact with the family, and just casually to potentially meet up while we were there, that kind of a thing, and that's how we learned the news. So we heard it directly from Annie, and it's not as though this was completely unforeseen. I mean, anyone who's heard the interview that we did or saw the Brett Con greeting that he made for us at the last convention knew that he's getting up there in years, and his health wasn't the best. So it wasn't a colossal surprise, but I mean I think hundreds of people have posted at this point to say just how shocking it is, because we all want to believe our heroes are going to live forever, and unfortunately, it's not true. Yeah.
Well, and like we talked about in the interview, we are 40 plus years on from the beginning of that program, and when we pop in a DVD or pull up a streaming episode or pull up a YouTube version of the episode, we see a snapshot in time. We see David and Jeremy when they were young and vibrant, and hey, time marches on for all of us, and as we get stuck, Sherlockians like to say it's always 1895. Well, maybe for Bretons, it's always 1985.
Right. And
I think that's true.
Actors have it so good in some ways, though, because Jeremy, David, Edward Hardwick, they'll be remembered that way forever. I mean, what a gift to them and to us. It's so neat.
We just remember our friends as they look right now.
Yeah.
We get to go back, as you said, to 1985 anytime, 1984, and it is like that. That is still who he is for me. And that's who Watson is for me, and who will always be. Yeah. And so growing up with him and then meeting him, and it was just this surreal, heartwarming experience. But it's
even when we were editing that interview, even though I had just left him and knew exactly how he looked and how he sounded, once the interview was put together and I listened back, I still saw the young 35, 40-year-old David Burke in that one. That's how I see him in my mind. Yeah.
So there's a thing that a lot of people keep saying in these comments is there's always a gleam in his eye, and that was a real thing too. Like we did some portraits after the end of it of him and Anna together, and there's a couple of pictures where he's looking at the camera, and it was the exact pose from one of the Sherlock promotional photos, and that little gleam is still in there.
That's great. That is great. So for those who haven't had the chance to see that interview, tell us what kind of person David was like and what kinds of stories he shared with you. It started off kind of rocky because we had to work through his agent. We had to do all these official things to make it happen, and we were told we were just going to have a few minutes, maybe an hour. And as soon as we got there, it was like we were welcomed with open arms. We were told we cleared the whole day for you. Oh, my gosh.
They made us lunch. They we shared drinks around the pond. They had us ride on their swing, which hung from the willow tree, which they built the swing. It was idyllic. It doesn't even capture it. It was like a fairy tale. Their home was a fairy tale. Their whole everything about it was a fairy tale. But I will say that the rain cloud was just that David, he was so nervous, and it was kind of a little bit shocking and off-putting to see, your hero be nervous about the interview. He seemed as though, and he told us flat out that he's like, I'm not going to remember anything. It's so long ago, I'm just not going to remember. But the thing we've learned as we've spoken to the people we have on this podcast is just that at first they don't remember, it's true, but just a little bit of prodding and you'd be amazed what comes. I'm sure it comes flooding back as soon as you start poking the right buttons. And
Yeah.
Well, and he even told us that he got out old journals so he was doing research for our interview.
Wow.
And it really felt like like it
was a gig.
Yeah, it felt like a gig, and all I felt was like we were big imposition on them. And once we got through his part of the interview, I think we took a break at one point, and he kind of just ran off to the house to get some drinks for everybody. And Anna pulled me aside, and she just said, he's like a whole new person. And he's so happy that it went well. And he's like, he didn't sleep the night before because he was so nervous, and it was just like, oh, man.
Yeah. Well, and those journals, I mean, he was a journaler. It was amazing, the notes he had, from, I mean, what a treasure trove would be to peek inside those notebooks. I'll tell you, I don't know if we've ever said this before, but we were actually lucky enough to peek inside one such treasure trove. He handed us his copy of the Baker Street File, which had all his notes written down in the margins.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we were able to kind of skim through some of that. It was kind of neat.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What? How generous of him to open his home to you like that, and to open his heart to you. I mean, we don't realize it, but these actors, and again, we experience them in a much different way than they experience the episode or the show that they were on, or the film they were in. They go to work for a few weeks at a time to create these things, perhaps getting to know a fellow cast member for a few days, and that's it. But we live in this, and we see it over and over again as part of our regular viewing habits and as part of our formative memories in some cases. As you say, Luke, you said, this is the guy we grew up with. And yet, for them, it was just a very brief moment in time. So for him to be able to snap back to that time 30, 40 years before and remember the people, that speaks to, I think, a larger culture that was going on the Granada set there, the production team between Michael Cox and Jeremy Brett. There's just a spirit about it that, as you say in the interview that we have with you in episode 334, everyone really was enjoying themselves while they were around each other.
Yeah.
We've done so many interviews. We're still waiting for the dirt. We haven't got there yet. It's all positive, all the way down.
Yeah. Well, although I will say this, I mean, I think, and I would never want to put words in David's mouth, but I think a small part of the reason he wanted to speak to us, and he said this, was to clear the air to some degree about why he left. And, he said it, publicly before, but I think he wanted to be very clear, and part of that had to do with the fact that Jeremy, we all know Jeremy had his own troubles, and he had lost his wife, and a lot of things had happened, and he was a little on the unstable side at times, and he frankly told David, I'm not coming back for season 2, so whatever they offer you, don't come back, because I'm not coming back. Yeah.
Wow.
And so David made tons of other plans, and we asked him point blank, would you have come back? And he's like, I can't say for sure that I would, but it would have been a hell of a lot more difficult if Jeremy was going back. And but by that point it was too late. He had made other plans, but I think he worried a little bit that people thought he just kind of decided to leave the show, for no good reason, but there was a good reason,
But that's the thing about, I think, that era of TV, but also just community and the public at that point. We didn't have social media, so people didn't know how their work was being received, other than through critics, which you can take that for what it is. But unless someone stops you on the street and says, I really liked you in that show, a lot of people didn't know back then.
Yeah.
And that was something I was actually, I felt keen to try to convey to him, was just all the love and the joy of the viewers of that show that have been expressed to us through this podcast, and to tell him that personally and see that it actually made an impact was really powerful.
Well, I think that there was an aftermath to that too, because once the interview came out, it was very nicely received by the listeners, and I think David and Anna were able to see that. They were able to see the comments, and they were able to see that there wasn't a single person out there that didn't just love hearing from him. And I think that definitely perked him up a lot when that happened. So, yeah.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
So I thought what we might do, the three of us together, is review some clips. Because and you guys do this regularly on your show. You actually clip the entire episode. So we listen to a Granada episode along with you as you guys analyze it and comment on it, etc.
Can I cut in for 1 second?
Sure.
So that's exactly what we do, and we got a comment on YouTube maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was just, "What the hell is this crap?" Like, why are they talking over the episode?
Yeah.
And I kind of want to make it our pinned comment, just make it our top comment.
They just say, "Hey, buddy, you ever see Mystery Science Theater 3000?" That's what we're doing here.
You ever heard of a podcast?
So, to me, and look, David Burke was only in 13 episodes, the first 13 episodes that were made. And, of course, there was a great shock to the system for viewers at the time when they get to the empty house, when Sherlock Holmes comes back from his hiatus, having survived the Reichenbach Falls. And he didn't look as surprised, but we as viewers were surprised to see there's a new actor. There's Edward Hardwicke. He's a much older Watson. But the transition worked at the time. And I think it still works really well because David set things up so well for a much different Watson than I think we had ever seen on the screen before. Yeah. So before we get to some clips that we're going to listen to that display what kind of a different Watson he was, you want to talk about how you've experienced his Watson, or how you've talked about it, and how you interpret his version of Watson?
Well, we are on file as saying that he is the only Watson to us. I mean, Edward Hardwicke is a close second, but David Burke has to take it in Luke and my's approximation. But there's just I don't know how to explain it, because the Granada somehow managed to capture the boyishness of Watson. And I mean, he wasn't a young man when he played the role, but there was a boyish charm, in spite of the gray hairs, and in spite of the fact that he was a soldier in the war, and in spite of being a full doctor and all these things, there was still a boyish charm. And I'm struggling to think of another portrayal that captured that quite so well. Because that magic, that magic in his eyes when Sherlock would solve the crime, would uncover the mystery.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the only thing that I feel like he edges out Edward Hardwicke, is just he had that wonder. Yeah. And to me, that's the thing. Yeah.
You don't think Nigel Bruce quacking like a duck was boyishly charming?
I have a very new appreciation for Nigel Bruce. I went back and watched them all again. We can talk about that another time. But yeah.
I think the time is relevant. The era is a little bit relevant.
Yeah.
But could you imagine any of the earlier portrayals of Watson alongside Jeremy?
That's a really interesting question.
This has to have come up on iHouse before.
This is if we could do like a cross germination of Sherlock universes.
Well, we get sent a lot of things, and I haven't actually had a chance to look at it yet, but someone did send us what they called a supercut of Hound of the Baskervilles, where they took all their favorite parts from every iteration of Hound and made one version of it. So it'll be interesting to see that, but similar.
That could be good.
But speaking of that, I think Andre Morel in the 1959 Peter Cushing Hound was a very good Watson.
Yeah, to be sure. Yeah.
He might have approached that, but look, here's the thing I've noticed with David Burke, and maybe you share this as well. First of all, we've said this before, it's a well-rounded Watson. He's not two-dimensional by any stretch of the imagination. And as you say, that boyish charm, that sense of humor, the twinkle in his eye, right? There's that. There's the stalwart friend who is ready with his Ely's number 2 and his toothbrush, ready to go on a journey with Holmes. Yeah. There is the medical man who is there caring for patients, people in need, whether they are villains or victims. There is the empathetic Watson who understands the trials and tribulations, whether it's of his friend or of the client or what have you.
Yeah.
So we get almost all of the encompassing human emotions around Watson demonstrated through David Burke's portrayal.
Right.
Yeah, and I think with empathy, you'd also have to put in a vulnerability. You know, he gets hurt in the series, and Holmes's actions actually wound him, and you know he has to kind of come back from that. And again, Nigel Bruce, it's just that maybe there wasn't time for it, and maybe that's a good excuse for it. But over these 13 episodes, he really just laid a whole new groundwork for Watson, in my opinion, going forward. It's going to be based on this, and then we'll adapt it as the future brings it.
Well, on the list of all those qualities you just described, you also can't forget the soldier who can stop a horse on command. Which,
solitary cyclist, yes. I like that. Well, why don't we get into these clips then and talk about what each of them represent. And I'm not necessarily going to go in order. I'm going to pick them in a way that kind of tells a story here.
All right.
So let's begin at a greeting. And this is probably one of my favorites. I'm partial to it, and you'll understand why after I play it. And see if you can guess which episode it's from. Okay, here we go.
Glad to meet you, Dr. Watson. I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became a chronicler.
Well, thank you.
Nice.
Okay. Well, obviously, that's the clip we use at the beginning of every episode. But
Yes.
do you know which episode that is from?
Well, it's the Greek interpreter, no doubt.
There you go. Charles Gray as Mycroft there.
Yeah.
Greeting Dr. Watson for the first time. Didn't even need to be introduced to him. He knew who he was.
Well, and even though that was a Charles Gray quote, I mean, again, it's a perfect selection because, again, just the wonder in his eyes when he observes that first deduction between the two
first
brothers.
time he sees Mycroft.
He's marveling at the two of them at the window there.
Yeah.
And then the fact...
There's a little... Go on.
I was just going to say the fact that he, the way Watson responds to Mycroft's compliment, he said, well, thank you. You know, you could tell he was touched. He's not used to getting praised for his work.
Yeah,
I think that's a little bit of that blend of a little bit of the old Watson that it's wonder, but it's a little bit of like bemusement also. So I feel like they kept a little bit of that comedy in there because his mouth is open at that point and he's just staring up like he is still funny. He just sells it differently.
Yeah, and it's a very different response from Charles Gray in that than in The Golden Pince-Nez when the inspector says, "I'd like to shake your hand," and he's like, "If you must."
We could have a whole other discussion on the evolution of Charles Gray's Moriarty, Mycroft of course. Okay, so let's see, where do we want to go next? I think, this is another favorite. It also appears in our intro, and to me, It shows, it's an aspect of Holmes and Watson's relationship that we don't necessarily always see, that Watson was a bit of an outsider. He wasn't necessarily the partner of Sherlock Holmes. He was his roommate who happened to be there at the time of some of the client referrals. And in this case, he wasn't sure whether he should be there. And just so folks are following along in your mind with us, Watson opens the door, thinks he's interrupting, closes the door and leaves, and then Holmes leaps over the sofa to open the door and tell him to come back in. So here's that scene.
Oh, sorry, Holmes. No. You couldn't have come at a better time.
Well, I was afraid you were engaged.
I am, very much so. Dr. Watson shares my love of all that is bizarre and outside the routine of everyday existence.
Okay, that episode?
It's Red-Headed League, right?
Very good. Introducing him to Jabez Wilson there, who was a joke of in and of himself, but just a great representation of the two of them, whether they should be working together or not, but Holmes reassures Watson that he wants him around. And to me, and this was the penultimate episode in the David Burke series, so they already had a great working relationship together, and we already got to know him fairly well. But it's just, again, a snapshot in time of Holmes and Watson's lives.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, though, too, because they are familiar at that point. I didn't pick up on that, but I do think it's interesting that he does walk in and go, oh, whoop, sorry about that. I'll just hop out.
The British version of
Yeah.
the Midwestern
Yeah. I'd love to hear Jeremy rolling his R's right there too.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, that's wonderful stuff.
Now we have Watson as medical man and somewhat of a confidant and concerned roommate. Let's turn right over to this.
I speak not only as your friend, but as a medical man. How can you risk such damage to the great powers with which you have been endowed?
I cannot tell you how it clarifies and stimulates the mind.
Yes, and destroys it in time.
I can't tell you how I'm having a hard time not speaking along with these quotes because, but Scandal in Bohemia, I gotta say, that was the first episode, but it actually was, I believe, the fourth episode they filmed, and the reason they waited is because they wanted to give a chance for Jeremy and David Burke to, actually develop a rapport so that it would feel more natural. But I have to say, when I watched Solitary Cyclist, which is the first episode they filmed, I feel like the rapport was there from day one. I don't think they needed the four episodes.
I think that's a studio note rather than the actor's note, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that was the opening where he asks Holmes whether it was morphine or cocaine.
Mm-hmm. But that's a great opening line because that sets like the scene for the whole series.
It does,
and their attitudes to each other. Like he's already let down by Holmes before we even meet him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of Sherlock.
That line is not actually from Scandal in Bohemia, though.
No, it's from The Sign of Four.
Right. Yeah.
Which was again still early on in the relationship. So it does set a tone for everything moving forward.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
Well, speaking of capabilities and the solitary cyclist, this is a little bit of a longer quote, but Watson comes back from an afternoon in the countryside where he's trying to scope things out and get a sense as to what's going on with Violet Westbury. And, oh no, that's not Violet Westbury, it's Violet Smith.
Yeah.
I get the four Violets mixed up.
Yeah.
And Violet Smith and the man crouching over the handlebars of the bicycle with the black beard. And he comes back to report to Holmes his progress and gets solidly upbraided by Holmes. Take a listen.
Watson, you have wasted your time.
I thought I did rather well.
No, your hiding place was ill-chosen. You should have been in the bracken on the other side of the road. In that way, you would have had a close view of this fascinating solitary cyclist. Thank you. As it is, you are 100 yards away and can tell me even less than Miss Smith reported to us last Saturday. You describe him as bending low over the handlebar?
Yes, quite low.
Yes, that's concealment again, which in your case worked perfectly. Oh, no, you really have done remarkably badly. He goes back to the hall, and you come all the way back to London to call on a house agent.
Well, I found the information I was seeking.
You found the name Williamson, which conveys nothing to my mind.
Well, we know he's elderly and respectable.
And therefore unlikely to be the energetic cyclist that sprints away from that athletic young girl.
Well, what should I have done?
Gone to the nearest public house. That is the center of country gossip. They would have given you every name from the master to the scullery maid. Instead of which you give me Williamson. Good afternoon, I wonder. So, what have we gained by your expedition? The fact that the girl's story is true. I never doubted that. That there is a connection between the cyclist and the hall. I never doubted that either. That the hall is tenanted by a man called Williamson. Who is the better for
I shall go back tomorrow and visit the public house.
No, my dear sir, do not commit yourself to rashness because you are temporarily depressed. We can do nothing useful until Saturday.
Did I really do remarkably badly?
Yes.
Oh, poor Watson, looking for some reassurance there and gets none of it.
That's still on the top of my list as probably my favorite episode of the show. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. It's hard to pick one, but that's at the very top. Yeah.
That is a good one.
It's a very quotable section. And the only thing I would add to it is right before that, when he's actually out in the field, there's a shot of the open field, and then David Burke just stands up into frame. And I can only imagine he's like, I want to stand up into this one, and they just did it.
He just prairie dogged right into the frame.
Yeah, prairie dogged.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly great. So, kind of an evolution here of Watson. We're going to go on a journey of Watson's ability to discern what Holmes is discerning. And this, I always thought, I can still remember having my VHS videotapes back in the 90s and listening and watching this section and thinking, oh, this would make a fantastic trailer for this episode. See if you can, well, I'm sure you can figure out which one it is. But listen to how Watson is trying to make sense of things.
You evidently saw more in those rooms than was visible to me, Holmes.
But I probably deduced a little more. Do you remember Miss Stoner said that her sister could smell Dr. Rowlett's cigar?
Well?
The ventilator. A ventilator maid. A cord hung. And a woman who lies in the bed dies.
I can't see any connection.
Did you notice anything peculiar about the bed? It was clamped to the floor. Could not be moved. Had to remain in the same relative position to the ventilator and the rope, for so we may call it, since it was clearly never made for a bell pull.
I begin to see dimly what you're driving at. We're only just in time to prevent some subtle and horrible crime.
I get chills listening to that. I don't know about you guys.
That's one of those moments that it's like a fine wine. It's every time I listen to it or watch it, it just gets better. I mean, it's such a great moment.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah. That could be a great trailer for a horror movie. But I think the thing, listening to it with your setting that up, you could hear an earlier Holmes recite that dialogue, and we just get it out. Here's what we're going to do, and we don't have this feeling. I think you could read that scene 5 different ways, and they went for, this is going to be horrifying, this situation.
Yeah.
And it sells it.
Yeah, it really does. And it was a horror story of sorts. You know, it was probably one of the more gothic tales in the canon.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, well, let's turn to a non-canonical location, but believable within the Granada universe. This one, oh, by the way, you guys, everybody knows that episode that we just aired. That's Speckled Band. Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't say it because it was so obvious.
The snake one, as they say.
The snake one.
So, spoiler alert, man. Okay, so now...
Don't you mean like a band of people?
A band of gypsies, certainly. Now we turn our attention to, as I say, a non-canonical location. Holmes and Watson sitting together in the barber shop.
You mustn't take it so badly, Holmes.
Whatever do you mean?
You are sitting there, boiling with indignation because you have been forced to leave the warmth and comfort of 221B by the ardour of Mrs. Hudson's spring cleaning.
My dear Watson, however did you deduce that?
By simply applying your methods, Holmes.
Indeed.
You'll agree that you are not here for either a shave or a haircut.
That is true. How did you know?
Because you invariably shave yourself, and you are patently not due for a haircut for another 2 weeks.
Correct.
And you left our rooms in some haste. You are without either your gloves or your cane.
Go on.
Well, I know that Mrs. Hudson has been trying to complete her spring cleaning all day. Now, you have been sitting there, frowning, eyes tightly closed, grinding your teeth, and all the time your fingers have been drumming like pistons on the arm of that chair. So, given all this evidence, even I cannot fail to deduce that you have quarrelled with our good housekeeper and sought refuge in the sanity of the barber's shop. You cannot deny that I am right.
Ah, Watson, you could not be further from the truth. I am here to get our good barber's advice as to this specimen of hair found at the scene of the bloody misadventure last Tuesday in Deptford.
Oh, come along, Holmes. You're worried about something.
What you perceived as agitation was indeed the most intense and tranquil enjoyment. My eyes were closed because I was trying to recall as vividly as I could the concert that we attended last night.
You were grinding your teeth.
That is because I made a slight error in my recollection of Joachim's fingering in his cadenza. In the third movement of the Beethoven violin concerto. Nevertheless, there is an element of truth in what you say.
Ah! A doctor's.
A general practitioner's, I perceive.
Not been long in practice or had much to do.
Come to consult us, I fancy.
See, kids, you don't need social media. You just need a friend. And you can keep track of his hair.
Oh, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
Right there, we see Watson go from attempting deductions to helping Holmes make them with the doctor's carriage there. So what an evolution of character within the span of minutes.
Yeah, and
just needs a nudge.
again, a credit to Granada, because in the story, again, it says they walked arm in arm, and who would ever think to actually do that?
Yeah.
in a modern television show, but they did, and it's wonderful, it's perfect. And David Carson, the director on that, could become a good friend of ours and of the show. And I mean, that moment that's about to happen right there, where it goes through the window, is
Yes.
one of my favorite moments of the show. I do have a question though.
Yes.
If Holmes was just there to get the barber's opinion on a sample of hair,
Yeah.
why was he sitting in the barber's chair?
I was wondering that myself. He's taking up valuable real estate.
He's Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Where do you want him
Yeah.
to sit?
Yeah, exactly.
But
Do we want to name the episode?
oh yes, please.
Gus? Is one of your favorites?
Well, again, this may be, if not my favorite, my second favorite. They're all my favorite. What can I say? But The
They're all
Resident
our
Patient.
favorites.
I love this one. I love this one.
The Resident Patient. Yeah, very good one.
Yeah.
And I should also note, by way of plug, that was the inspiration for the theme song we chose for our other podcast, Trifles, the
Right.
Beethoven Violin Concerto.
Yeah, it's a great piece of music. It's a very long piece of music if you're ever editing a podcast like I often am,
yes,
and you need music to fill it in. It's a great piece.
I think Scott probably is like that.
Yeah.
One might say,
Yeah.
Well, let's continue on this journey of Watson as able assistant of Sherlock Holmes and fellow master. Well, I don't know if he was a master of deduction, but he was at least an apprentice. Here we have, it's the close of another episode, and Holmes makes reference to a book of the Bible, and Watson looks it up and has some conclusions of his own.
You're quite right, Holmes. Second book of Samuel, chapter 11, verses 14 to 17. You appear to have looked it up yourself. Since we returned home from Aldershot.
How did you know?
You used this bill for our meal at Waterloo as a bookmarker, did you not?
Excellent, Watson.
Elementary, my dear Holmes.
Good night, old fellow.
The much maligned, the crooked
Does
man.
it curl your hair when someone says elementary, my dear Watson?
Oh.
My dear Holmes?
No, I can deal with my dear Holmes. That's right out of the story. But my dear Watson, that was an invention of William Gillette on stage, never said by Holmes. But it was a nice turn of phrase where Watson turned it back on Holmes at that point, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get Luke, I'm your father a lot, and I just go, it's not the line.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I will say, though, David Burke, in one of his rare curmudgeonly moments with us in our interview, he wasn't pleased with how Crooked Man came out. It's not that he wasn't pleased with how it came out. It was just that the fact that they removed the scene under the lamplight never sat quite right with him. He thought he and Jeremy both fought for it. Quite a bit, but in the end, it got changed.
Well, I think the line they wanted to go with was, "Do either of you ladies want to see my mongoose?" It wasn't family friendly enough.
It wasn't family friendly. Not safe for work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could understand him being upset with that. And that was the thing. He and Jeremy, they had their Baker Street file. They read the canon, and they understood Michael Cox's intention of being as faithful as they could to the canon. Obviously, when we have scenes like that barbershop scene we just listened to from The Resident Patient, that wasn't canonical, but it was believable in the context of the episode. So it was consistent that way.
And it takes
I suppose you weren't changing it.
Yeah. And I think it takes an exceptional writer to write something that you could believe could be Conan Doyle.
Right.
And put it into a canonical tale. I mean, that's a real skill. Yeah.
And I wonder if the reason it bothered David Burke was because it was so early.
Yeah.
And that we were already weakening on it.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe it stuck out more.
In which case, he probably thanked his lucky stars he left the show after 13 episodes.
Yeah. I will say in our podcast, that's one of the things that is dismaying, disheartening. I'm not sure, but as they get later and later into the series, it's like the guardrails came off to some degree with all the different people coming and going and the changes at Granada and Jeremy's health failing, and it just wasn't as easy to keep them as canonical as they should have been, and that's sad. It's sad.
Hard to do. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Okay, a few more clips here. You guys have been very patient here. And,
it's joyous.
Let's go to this one, where Holmes and Watson are getting on each other's nerves quite a bit. Holmes is bemoaning the fact that his practice seems to be failing based on the types of clients he's attracting, and he, in his annoyance, is criticizing Watson's writing as being one of the reasons for this downward spiral.
Something wrong?
To the man who loves art for its own sake, it is frequently in its least important and lowliest manifestations that the keenest pleasure is to be derived.
Oh, if you say so, Holmes.
It is pleasant to me to observe, Watson, that you have so far grasped this truth, that in these little records of our cases which you have been good enough to draw up, and I am bound to say, occasionally embellished, that you have given prominence not so much to the many cause célèbre and sensational trials in which I have figured, but rather to those incidents which have given room for those faculties of deduction and logical synthesis, which I have made my special province.
Kind of you to say so, Holmes.
You have erred, perhaps. You have erred. In attempting to put color and life into each of your statements, instead of confining yourself to placing upon record that severe reasoning from cause to effect, which is really the only notable feature about the thing.
You are always in a disputatious mood when you choose that pipe. It seems to me that I've done you full justice in the matter.
No. It is not selfishness and conceit. If I claim full justice for my art, it is because crime is common, logic is rare. Therefore, it is upon logic, rather than upon crime, that you should dwell. You have degraded what should have been a course of lectures into a series of tales.
Well, really, Holmes, I hardly think my poor scribblings deserve that. They have, after all, made your name a household word.
Oh, pshaw, my dear fellow. What do the public, the great and observant public, who can hardly tell a wheel by his tooth or a composite by his left thumb, care about the finer shades of analysis and deduction? But indeed, if you are trivial, I cannot blame you. The days of the great cases are past. Man, or at least criminal man, has lost all enterprise and originality.
Oh, surely not.
I fear so. As for my little practice, it seems to be degenerating into an agency for recovering lost lead pencils and giving advice to young ladies from boarding schools.
My dear, dear friend, how can you say such a thing?
I think I have touched bottom. Finally, however, this note I had this morning marks my 0 point, I fancy.
Oh, goodness, who is it from?
Read it.
Now, kids, remember, if you're really angry with someone, there's no better way than smacking your pipe on a piece of paper.
Especially your disputatious pipe. Yeah.
You see this, and we talked about this on a recent episode of Trifles. You see this conflict between the two men coming into play here. They're differing opinions on what was trivial, what was not, what needed storytelling or emotion versus what needed to be a series of lectures. It's fascinating to see them dig in, and yet, you heard toward the end of that clip the empathy of Watson starting to come through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My dear Holmes, how can you say that? His heart was breaking for his friend.
Yeah.
It's almost like you must have missed a meal, man. What's the matter? Like he understood,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect comment, Luke, because this next clip does involve Watson trying to get some food into Holmes and him feeling for his friend once again.
Holmes? You must permit yourself some food. You must eat.
At present, I cannot afford energy and nerve force for digestion.
Well, you must if you intend to pursue this case.
I fear, my dear fellow, that our case will end ingloriously by Lestrade hanging our client. Which will certainly be a triumph for Scotland Yard. There's a telegram.
Important fresh evidence to hand. MacFarlane's guilt definitely established. Advise you to abandon case Lestrade.
It is Lestrade's little cockadoodle of victory.
Let's have some breakfast. And then go out together and see what we can do.
I feel as if I shall need your company and moral support today.
Now, right there, I shall need your company and moral support today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just so, listening to these clips, listening to the two of them, my God, who could do this today? I don't know. I don't know that there's anybody who could ever do this.
Well, they don't need to. We've got these gems.
We've got it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Really
no, that's one of those moments, man. There's so many of these heartfelt moments in these first 13 episodes. Again, I think that's why David Burke edges it out. It's just so many of those heartfelt moments, and it's just so legit. It's just so real.
It's real and believable and sweet and people talk about this series and they kind of always go to the friendship angle and for me it's not the only part of the series that I like, but when you just dissect that slice of it, it's really there. It's really strong.
It is and like you say, there's so many scenes like this to pull out. I've just selected one from almost all of his episodes, but we could pick out many in each episode. So, and we'll I think we will. This is where we naturally conclude our final clip, and it's not only fitting that we conclude on it for this episode, but that David concluded on this for his final episode as well.
It's with a heavy heart that I take up my pen to write these, the last words in which I shall ever record the singular gifts by which my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, was distinguished. I shall ever regard him as the best and the wisest man I have ever known.
Yep.
Yeah. And I have to wonder, as David Burke was reciting those lines, knowing that this was his final gig, final episode with Granada, what he was feeling. Did you guys talk to him about that?
I don't know if we talked about it in that way. I mean, I don't know that he knew at that moment that it was the final one. I think, the way these things get made, that might not have been the last scene. They might have shot that first and then done the rest of the episode. You know what I mean? But I think once it was all said and done, I think he was happy that it went out on a good note. That he had a good performance at the end. He was an actor, through and through, and I think. We look back at these things as magical creations of, Hollywood or the British version of Hollywood, and there's so many aspects to the story, to the history, but to David, it was a performance, and he was a performer, and that's what he cared most about, was that his performance was believed and was appreciated. And I think we've told the story before, but when when he was offered the part, he didn't really want to take it because he's just so ordinary. and his wife said that you're perfect for it then. And but then she clarified and said you're perfect for it because it takes an extraordinary man to play an ordinary man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We are lost without our Boswell.
And we are. We are.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, we have him on these 13 episodes and in some of the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes podcast episodes as well.
Yeah.
If folks would like to listen to more about what Gus and Luke do, and perhaps even watch some of their video interviews with certain people on YouTube, you can find more out about them at sherlockpodcast.com. Gus and Luke, I can't thank you enough for taking this time. You snapped to it when I asked you if you would do this kind of emergency episode with me, and I can't thank you enough for being willing to do that.
Well, we can't thank you enough for keeping the flame alive, and I'm sure we will be carrying the torch for David Burke, and I know you will be too. And we'll keep talking about him. He'll live on.
We sure will.
Any tribute we can do for him, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bon voyage, David.
Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. If you'd like more, please subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts and sign up for emails at ihearofsherlock.com, ihearofsherlock.substack.com, and patreon.com/ihearofsherlock. At those latter two, we have special bonus content just for our paying subscribers, as well as shows that are ad-free. We look forward to your support, and please share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it.